Hello, I'm Jeff Buckman, and this is Peter Rall, and we're from Valley Forge Baptist Temple, and we lead the short-term missions trips here, and we just wanted to share some of the things that we've learned over the years. Peter, how did you get started in doing the short-term mission trips?
Well, that's an interesting story, Jeff. You see, I've been a member here at Valley Forge Baptist Temple since 1987, and in 1991, I walked into church on a Sunday morning. There was a sign-up sheet for a trip to Puerto Rico for singles and teenagers, and my name and my wife's name were pre-printed on that form. So I was then finding out that I was leading a trip of singles and teenagers to Puerto Rico that summer of 1991, numbering 14, and you talk about a little bit of fear, a little bit of intimidation, like, oh my word, I've never done this before. And but the Lord blessed, we got through it, and since then there's been 26 trips in the past, and that's how we got started. How about you? How did you get started?
Well, back in 1998, my wife Nancy and I were asked to be helpers on a trip to Bonaire. And we took a group of our teens, I think there was about 18 or so teens that went, and we held a VBS there. And the missionary liked us coming. He invited us back for the next year. The only thing is, we were asked to not be the helpers, but to lead the trip. So when I was asked, hey, would you consider leading the trip, I thought in my mind, there's no way I'm going to lead a short-term missions trip. But prayed about it. The Lord led us to lead that trip, and here we are, fast forwarding probably 20-some trips later, from VBS to construction to the jungles to metropolitan areas. I know you've led trips, all kinds of trips as well, music trips and things. Yep. So we've kind of covered the gamut. We've made some mistakes that hopefully that you can learn from. So we'll just review some of the details now with you that we have down for today.
Sure. The first thing you want to do is you want to contact your missionaries. You have a missionary families that you support. And in the early years, I sent out a survey, 10 simple questions ranging from, would you like a group to come, to what's your closest airport to fly into, what type of things could we do to assist in your ministry. And let me just say, those things could include any number of things: construction, passing out tracts, tract distribution, singing and testimonies, music, drama, holiday Bible club. Not that you would do all those things on one trip, but you would choose something that would be a help and a blessing to your missionary family.
Once you have dialed in on what trip you're going to do and the missionary that you're going to serve, then announce to the congregation that you're going to have an informational meeting. And you want to announce that a few weeks ahead of time so people can hear the announcement a couple times, put it in the bulletin, but then you know what type of trip it is. So if it's going to be a construction trip, go to some of the construction folks in your congregation and invite them to the meeting personally. Personal invitation is key, and you want to be able to get those leaders that are going to be able to be instrumental in leading the group through whatever it is that you're going to be doing. If it's a VBS trip, then invite people that are good at teaching VBS.
The next thing you want to dial in on is the cost. What is this trip going to cost? And when you figure out cost, you want to have an all-inclusive cost. You want to have your airfare, your lodging, your ground transportation, your food. You want to have it all together. So as Jeff and I have talked many times, we don't want to nickel and dime our people. We want to be able to give them a cost that includes everything. Checking the airline websites, checking the group desk if you have 10 or more for a group fare, checking different sites, doing your research on the airfare. And then whether you have to rent a van or you're going to use the missionaries' transportation, you want to make sure that you've covered enough in fuel cost to be able to cover those costs of the fuel so that the missionary is not out a dime. In any of these things, you want to keep in mind that you're going to be an asset and not a liability to your missionary family. So set that cost, and then kind of once you're dialed in on that, you want to add an extra $500 or $600, $700 because there's things that are going to come up. Jeff, you and I have both experienced it, and you got to have some extra cash.
At the informational meeting, then you just review the major points: who the missionary is, where you're going, the dates that you're going. You now have the cost, and just review those key points with the congregation and those that come out for the meeting, and try to, at that point, have people sign up for the trip.
And the other good thing is, once you've got this all dialed in, ask for a deposit of either 10 to 15% of the trip cost, and that will kind of separate the ones who are just kind of, they're looking, they're interested, to those who are seriously interested. So I would get a deposit on that trip also. And you also want to think about having planning meetings once the trip is formed. Again, that's going to depend on the type of trip. If it's a music trip, you're going to need to schedule a lot of rehearsals. If it's a construction trip, you may just need a few meetings, but you want to have those meetings and you want to have them in the bulletin so people are aware of what's going on. So even though they may not be coming on that trip, they can start to pray for that upcoming trip, and they can start thinking about the trip that they want to come on.
Also think about the size of the team that you want to have come. You don't want to have too large of a team so people aren't kept busy. So just think through how many people you're going to need. Discuss that with the missionary as well. You don't want people to pay the expense of a trip, take a week of their vacation time, and then not be kept busy. So just think that through and be able to know how many people you should have going on the trip. Also, you want to ask the missionary about the dress code. What do they prefer from doing the ministry during the week? If it's a construction trip, what's appropriate for men to wear, what's appropriate for ladies to wear. Sometimes the men want to wear shorts. Is that okay? And then what's the appropriate dress for Sundays? That's key for men and ladies as well. You don't want to take a trip to the jungle and have all of your men in a three-piece suit. So just whatever the missionary says, you review that in detail. Sometimes I'll even take the missionary's email where they responded and cut and paste that and give that to everybody so that they can see directly. This is what we're following, and there's no exceptions.
Let me just touch on size of the group that, Jeff, as you had mentioned, and size is sometimes going to be dictated also by lodging and or transportation that's available there. And Jeff is very right when he says people want to be used and kept busy. You don't want to get so big of a group that when you get on job site, someone's just kind of standing there, well, not sure what to do, or there's not a job for them to do.
That's right.
So excellent point on that. The other thing that you want to do in addition to communicating about the dress code is there any special gift or special item that your group can bring to that missionary family that they might not be able to get in the country they are? Sometimes it's something small, sometimes it's something, a food item, just something they can't get. Just say, hey, what can we bring you? Also, many times they may be homeschooling. It may be hard for them to get materials. Just make sure you make yourself available to bring anything that they can use down. And I know we've taken extra suitcases. You've taken extra suitcases. And they are so grateful for that. It's a little thing, but make sure you ask what you can bring.
Just to tag on to what Peter mentioned, we always find it interesting, but missionaries ask us to bring peanut butter. They can't get peanut butter where they are, and they are just desiring to have peanut butter. So just be open for what you think are unusual things, but when you arrive and your whole team has a big jar of peanut butter, their smiles are just huge when they see that you've brought something that they can't get there. If it's a construction trip, send funds, if possible, ahead of time to purchase the materials, and send those funds well ahead, maybe 4 or 5 months, and then follow up with the missionary to make sure that they are buying the materials that are needed. We've already shown up on trips where the materials are arriving the same day we do, but then there's items that are back ordered. We can't, maybe it was plumbing items they couldn't get, and the plumber that went on the trip couldn't do what he was there to do. So almost to the point of exhaustion almost, make sure that the missionary is getting the funds they need for the materials and that they get the materials on site. I know here at Valley Forge Baptist, we're able to send $10,000 on a construction trip 4 or 5 months ahead of time, and just what a blessing that is to the missionary. I've had missionaries just kind of one-on-one with tears in their eyes say, I can't believe that you guys do that. And it's just a tremendous help. So not only are you sending the manpower to get the job done, you're sending the supplies to do that. So that may not be appropriate or work for your church budget, but maybe if you put out a general special offering or an announcement, that might touch somebody's heart to be able to give towards that. But if you can arrange to do that, it's a tremendous blessing.
Exactly. And the earlier the better. As Jeff said, you want to do that in advance because whether you're sending the money through a mission agency, wiring it to an account that they have, you've got to get it there in time for them to get the materials, because there's nothing worse than arriving at a job site ready to work. Where's the materials? Also, we want to mention that when these trips are put together, I know that I stress it in our group planning meetings, Jeff stresses this, and that is this: these are not sightseeing trips.
Okay.
They're not vacation trips. I always let our folks know, hey, if perchance the missionary happens to want to take a half day and show us something because he just really thinks he wants to show us a site that's there, that's an extra. That's a bonus. But please, I tell the people, don't plan on it. Don't go on this trip because, oh, I've always wanted to go to this country and see such and such. These trips are focused ministry trips where our teams want to be a 100% blessing to the missionary families. We don't want them to have to put out a dime. We don't want to do anything in our dress or standards that would take away or deter from their ministry. So we always stress that, number one, they're vacation trips. Number two, be flexible. How many times have we said, be flexible? Things change constantly. You might get there thinking you're going to do A, B, and C, and you end up doing X, Y, and Z. So you've got to be flexible. You've got to be able to change at a minute's notice. Oh, also, one of the other things is you're going to find out that when you take a trip like this, people are going to come together and they're really going to get, you never get to know somebody like when you're traveling with somebody after you spent, 20 hours on a plane or whatever, but you really come together as a group and it really, you make new friendships, new relationships.
For sure. Another thing you want to do is kind of pull the group that's going and see what talent that there is in addition to the ministry that you're going to be doing that you can apply to Sunday service. If you have someone going that can preach, would they be willing to preach that Sunday and then offer that to the missionary? Perhaps there's special music, or someone works well with children. They could take care of the children's Sunday school. So just kind of find out who is good at what their talents are. Mention to your group also that they should be prepared at a second's notice to give a testimony. Testimony perhaps during the Sunday service, Sunday evening service, or Wednesday night prayer meeting. Sometimes the missionary will come to you as the piano's playing, the service is starting, and I'd like to have 3 testimonies during the service. So, just mention that to your group. And just to reiterate what Peter mentioned, at pretty much every meeting that you have in preparing for the trip, and then maybe even on your way to the airport with the group, you're reminding the team that they're there to minister to the missionary, to be an encouragement to the missionary is job number 1. Number 2 is to be an encouragement to the church that you're going to serve, yes, and to get to know those members as well. And then, as Peter mentioned, the side blessing is just to get to know the other team members extremely well. So those are some things that we wanted to review with you. Hopefully they'll be helpful as you plan your short-term missions trip. These notes are available as a PDF, just as part of what you're viewing right now. So thanks for watching.
Yeah, thank you.